Good morning, and thank you very much for coming. My name's Bill Amberg from Bill Amberg Studio in London, and I thought I'd give you a little bit of introduction and talk about myself, at my studio specifically, and try and weave in a little bit of that as to why I use leather and what I find particularly fascinating about the material and the potential of the material for use in interiors and architecture. We come from a long tradition of crafting the material. It's an ancient material. As most of you know, it's probably the oldest continual industrial process known to man. There are tannery sites that are 30,000 years old, and that principle of turning tree bark and water into a liquor and replacing fat and protein in skins is still going now in exactly the same way with vegetable tanning all around the world. I started my fascination with the material in Northampton, which is not far from here where I grew up, which is a shoe town. It used to have lots of tanneries, and it just grew from a hobby into a business. And now we're based in London with a big team of craftsmen and also the usual ancillary marketing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But really the fundamentals of my business is around the craftsmen and the artisans who I work with. I'm absolutely passionate about it in pushing the material along, finding new ways of doing it, of expanding what we do in terms of the craft opportunity, and mixing up the different types of materials and techniques that are available. As you probably know, leather is one of those materials that's traditionally been siloed. Here we are at a furniture show, but actually leather comes across in so many different areas of life. There's saddlery, shoemaking, case making, bookbinding, and upholstery, and there's all of these things, and fashion. And they all traditionally have their own materials, and they have their own techniques. What I'm interested in doing is taking all of those materials that are available across the different elements of leatherworking and all the techniques that are traditionally available only to those specific styles of leatherworking, mashing them all up together and seeing what's possible. So we might take something from saddlery and put it into upholstery. We might take something from bookbinding and put it into wall paneling. And that's what I think makes it intriguing. That's what pushes the material forward. That's what makes something unique. And perhaps for the clients, that's what supplies something that becomes extraordinary and raises it above the ordinary. I also am very, very interested in the actual design of something. You know, I'm not in a business where somebody will come to us and say, cover this in leather. We're not really interested. We like to understand the principles of what somebody's trying to do, and then work with their design team, be that an architect, an interior designer, or a private client, to fully understand and comprehend what's possible, and then we will then build with our own design team and communicate the best possible way of doing it. And that leads us into the last thing that I think is really important in our approach, which is collaboration. All the best things come from building together with somebody. Be that an architect, as I say, or an interior designer, or a private client, or indeed, increasingly, we're now working with bigger brands from the drinks industries or the fashion industries or yacht companies. All sorts of different elements are beginning to understand the potential of leather and what it can do. It's an extraordinary material. I mean, I love it for it's an iconic material. It can do so many different things. It can be elegant. It's got that kind of rock and roll feel to it, and it's also really sexy. It's a very tactile material, and it's often overlooked. And people just ignore these kind of fundamental things about the material, that the reason why people love it. Historically, it's been used in interiors for many, many years. I mean, it's got all kinds of medieval usage for highlighted wall panels, but also, all around the world, it's used as a material for interiors and/or architecture. It's created some icons from the sublime to the ridiculous, and it goes from every element of materials for the interiors. And out of that have come some real classics. So it's a material that not only has been used to push things forward, but it's also outstood the lasting test of time. And I think that is really important in terms of when we think about it as a sustainable material and what its potential is for being material for the future and not just the past. Because it is a material that's a byproduct, it's a material that's repairable, it's durable, it's got huge, huge possibilities. There's lots of kind of strange facts that have been kicked around recently about leather, and a lot of misinformation, I think, that seems to be becoming more and more prevalent in the press, where people are picking up perhaps the wrong end of the stick, I think. It's a byproduct. There's 98% of the of cattle skins get used for meat. Very, very, very little animal skins animals are killed for their skins. Perhaps in the luxury leather goods market, there might be a tiny percentage alligator and what have you. But the bulk of the cow population goes straight into be recycled to be turned into leather after the meat industry's dealt with it. They're completely recyclable. It's the lifespan of leather when put in the ground at the end of its life is it will turn back into soil in 10 years or so, perhaps depending on the tannage. Plastics on any level will take 450 years minimum. So any PU-coated vegan alternative at the moment shouldn't be used at all, I don't think. It's also repairable. I think that's really, really important, and I believe that now the circular economy is going to become more evident. People are going to be more interested in the potential of materials that can be repaired. It extends the lifespan of something dramatically, and not only repairable, it's cleanable without having to dismantle it and to use other cleaning solvents or what have you to clean it. At the studio, we are really intrigued with the possibility of trying to mix up some of these ideas around sustainability, repairability, and durability, and what does that actually mean and how can we do it? This is a set of furniture that we've recently designed for a restaurant for an estate called Knepp, which is in Sussex. We're selling these now worldwide, but they're important because it's probably the first time that we have taken the cattle from an estate, tanned them specifically in the UK, and then using that tannage, developed a piece of furniture for a project. And this is on the stand here in Hall 4, and I really encourage you to go and have a look at it if you haven't seen it already. But it's most intriguing what you can do by just simply following that circular route. So, and I think that again, this kind of attitude will start to become more and more evident, and we're now talking to other estates around Europe who are interested in having their materials that would otherwise go into the general leather market being used specifically and returning them back to their place of origin. We also use our waste material in the best way we possibly can. I think that given that leather comes from an animal, you have to respect that. You cannot simply throw it away, and you also must utilize every aspect of the waste that it produces. Particularly with vegetable tan leathers, which is my real personal favorite. We collect up all our vegetable tan leather, we strip it, as you see in the photograph on the right, and we have a massive machine that we've made, that we have at work, and we compress it up and make a new very stable and rather beautiful surface material and design bits of furniture like the central table there. We work a lot with public space buildings, and we do a lot of receptions. It seems to be one of the things that people come to us for. Again, we can communicate with architects and interior designers very well with our design team, but I find it fascinating as well to try and design something for a space. These are two examples of recent work that we've done, both for public space. The one on the right is at Aldersgate, where we designed a big suite of furniture for the interior of a law firm, all hand-stitched, vegetable tan leather with a bronze plinth. And the one on the left was a project for Bristol, where we were trying to utilize everything within a 40-mile radius of the building. So we were taking wood from there, from a local forest. We used a local timber yard to cut the wood. We used a local joiner to make the chair, and we used a local tannery to produce a skin that we could use for the upholstering of the chair. We also used wool waste for the stuffing, so there's no foam inside. So it's a completely homogeneous project that came directly from a 40-mile radius from the building where it's intended for. Site-specific work is really intriguing, and I really enjoy it. I mean, my mother was an architect. That's kind of my background. My father had an engineering business based in Northampton that was built around architecture. So I'm fascinated with it as a subject. And projects like this one at the Royal Academy Lecture Theatre are really intriguing. This is a mixed tannage. We needed to have a little bit of veg in a chrome tan base because to utilize the ability to emboss properly on the leather. Also, aniline dyeing is really important here. I think it's something that we try and really encourage our clients to understand. It's not pigmenting too heavily the material, leaving a little bit of the character of the natural skin still intact, producing a surface material that still feels like leather. If you over-pigment leather, you end up with taking away the natural hand feel, and you end up with a cold feel, because all you're really feeling is polyurethane. You're not actually touching the material at all, and that sexy tactility, which we know and love in leather, gets negated. And this is something that I think it's something that the market is moving more towards, a little bit more of a natural feel. It also kind of highlights what I think are the four key things that I really try and encourage architects and interior designers to think about when they're considering using leather as a material. And it's something that I can clearly demonstrate when I'm in the studio. It's less easy to do it here, but they are scale, color, texture, and finish. And they're the four principal variables of any leather choice. Scale is really important because you can work perfectly successfully with a full bovine bull hide, which is massive. You can get a 50, 60 square foot hide, which will cut an enormous panel, 6 foot plus by 4 foot plus in a single panel. But you can also, and that has character on that skin. You're getting shoulder, backbone, belly, back, all of that. But you're getting the same character from a much smaller scale animal. So if you look at a goat skin or a sheep skin or a deer hide, for instance, you'll get the same character on a much smaller scale. And depending on what you're making, it's important that you consider that, I think, because in the same way as you would use a piece of wood, you would look at the grain of a piece of wood and consider it in the most appropriate way for the piece of furniture that you're making. Why wouldn't you do that for the leather that you're using? You do not want to have a uniform printed material with a uniform color on it, because you've taken away all the natural character of the skin. So we're very, very interested in seeing what you can do with scale. Color is the same thing. You can pigment something to the hell so that you can get a Pantone color reference, but you've lost all the nuance of the skin itself. So aniline dyeing is the other end of the spectrum. There is plenty of stuff in between, as you see here. They were slightly nervous about having too much color variation on these panels in the seats, but we can adjust it just to level it off a little bit to even it up. Texture is also really important. Likewise, I was talking about wood as an example. When you sand a piece of wood and you get a totally smooth finish, that's completely different from, say, a saw cut, leaving something saw cut. And you've got two entirely different hand feels. And that is really important. So the touch of it becomes quite an important element, and that's controllable with texture. Also, you can make something look very robust and butch and strong by giving it a bold texture. You can make something look incredibly chic and elegant by taking the texture away and smoothing it off and flattening it back. That's completely controllable with leather. It's not so often that you can do that with a material. And it's again, it's something that's kind of overlooked. People accept the leather that's plonked in front of them, but you don't need to be quite so prescriptive. You can actually work with the variety of the leather that's available. I mean, the difference between a bull shoulder and a kid's side are completely different textures, and they're saying completely different things. And that would be, that you're going to lay that on your furniture that you're designing. And the fourth element that I think is really important is finish. Again, you probably think about it maybe in cars. You see it in cars a lot. You have super shiny, absolutely spanking, glistening cars that say a lot about the car because they are really bling. You can do that in leather. You can patent leather. You can bring leather up to such a high sheen that it just, it's like a mirror. It's beautiful. But you can also, with leather, you can take it right down to matte. And you can take something right down so it's got a completely matte finish and everything in between. The hand feel, again, you can adjust. You can make something feel really silky and gorgeous. And you can make something feel really waxy and bold. Again, these are the final processes of leather production that are completely controllable. So again, all of these four things are the things to consider when you're thinking about using leather. So that's scale, color, texture, and finish. We do a lot of other big installation works, which I'm intrigued with. I like the possibility of thinking about leather architecturally. So in terms of what you can do on a wall scale, what you can do to change the environment. Leather has an extraordinary acoustic. It's very warm. It will completely alter the environment that you put it in. And again, this is worth considering if you have an intimate space, or if you have a large space that needs warming up, or if you have a space where you want to adjust the acoustic. We want to change the tone, the audible tone of a space. You can do that by putting leather wall paneling up. It completely adjusts the sound of a room. Going back to what I was saying about touch, we do a lot of handrails. Handrails are a real easy win for leather. It feels fantastic in the hand. The one on the left is the Bloomberg building in London, where we did just under a mile of leather-wrapped handrail. It's a fantastic staircase, but it's also a real indictment of the material. It works really beautifully. You can also use it decoratively, as we've done on the left. We've turned it into leather stringers for a staircase. So there's a big variety between one type of rail or another. Obviously, my mother was half Finnish, and she used to work for Alvo Aalto in Finland, and this was his leather-wrapped handrail, which he did for the main concert hall in Helsinki, if any of you have ever been. But definitely, he was the father of the leather-wrapped handrail, and it's something that we really promote and do a lot of different varieties of this handrail. It's all done by hand. It's all fully crafted. We do a big variety from leather wrapping to hand stitching to butt joining. There's no end to the possibilities for it. As I was saying, changing the acoustic of a building is really important, but also elevating it, just giving something a little bit of luxury if you wanted to. This is the Harrods Fine Watch Department, where we did all of the walls on 2 floors in leather, and also this beautiful stitched handrail that goes down into the lower level. Again, change the acoustic, change the temperature, add luxury. There's lots and lots of opportunities with the material for an environment. It works very well domestically. spaces like dining rooms, cinemas, where the acoustic is really important. Leather is a fantastic material for that. Lighting, believe it or not, is also something that we've been looking at. We take our leather scrap, we have it braided, and we turn it into meters and meters of braid. And that got us thinking about knotting and got us thinking about what's the possibility of using leather for lighting. One of my bugbears about lights is they look quite ugly when they're off. Everybody considers lights when they're on, but actually when they're off is quite important because that's like half the time. And so it was about trying to design a light that actually looks beautiful when it's off, and when it's on is a bonus. And I kind of think that's what we've achieved here with this loom light. We also print on leather. One of the things that I've found with leather, I mean, historically, as a decorative surface, it's been decorated for years and years and years. But and I'm intrigued with what's the possibility of doing it going forward. Digital printing is something that has evolved, quite rapidly, and people had been using it on leather. But the problem is that they were too concerned with the print, and they were printing onto any leather, and you end up with a surface material. You have no penetration, it has no strength. You negate the natural feel of the material, and you start to end up with a plasticated surface that just happens to be paint. It suddenly dawned on me one day that actually the main problem with that is there was no tannage that had been developed to accept digital ink. So we approached one of our tanning partners in Upholstery Skins about whether they would be interested in developing a leather specifically to accept digital ink. And that's what we've done here. And we've developed a material that takes digital ink really beautifully across the whole CMYK color range, and you get a full penetration into the skin, and you end up being able to have a material that is still very much leather. It still looks, feels, and performs like leather, but you can transpose a decorative surface to it really easily. And again, this takes me back to the historical view of the Florentine, Spanish, highlighted leather panels of the 17th century. And what we did here with our skins is we teamed up with designers, and we collaborate very closely with the designers on producing leather for either their furniture or their wall paneling. The one on the right is Faye Toogood, and the one on the left is Bethan Gray, and it's one of their prints. This is my final slide. It's 22 Bishopsgate. It gives you a little bit of an idea of the scale that we're working on. It's a very large interior building. Interiors of the largest commercial building in Europe. It's at 22 Bishopsgate. And again, interestingly, there was an issue here with fire retardancy in the public space. Leather, as you know, or maybe you don't know, doesn't burn. Leather chars, so it's naturally fire retardant. And even though we wanted to have a padded feel to the walls and the ceiling in this environment, we were concerned about the foams. There's no foam that we could back the leather with that would have the hand feel that we wanted, which was this nice plump hand feel. So again, we approached one of our tanning partners in upholstery, and we produced a 5.5 millimeter thick upholstery hide that has that feel. So when you touch these wall panels, you can feel the density of the skin, you can get a softness to it. Again, hugely helps in the acoustic in the area, which is what on our brief, in fact, was to create a kind of warm, quiet area in the reception. And this is what I think we achieved quite successfully there. Thank you very much. Do you have any questions? Yeah. My name is Bill Amberg. I have a company called Bill Amberg Studio based in London. and we specialize in leather for interiors and furniture and product. In Park Royal. Yeah, in northwest London. You know it. Yeah, come and visit. Number 14 Minerva Road. Fantastic. Great. Thank you very much.